All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today we are jumping into a really fascinating homeopathic remedy called Sepia. And what's so cool about this one is where it comes from, the dark, inky fluid of the cuttlefish. And as you're about to see, the way this creature protects itself gives us this incredible window into the human state it helps. This quote right here, it just nails the entire theme of Sepia. I mean, think about it. When a cuttlefish is threatened, what does it do? It shoots out its ink, creating this big, dark cloud, a smokescreen. And that's not just some cool nature fact, right? It is the perfect metaphor for a state of mind where a person basically feels the need to hide from their own life. So to really get a handle on that whole smokescreen idea, we've got to start with the creature itself. The story of Sepia literally begins in the ocean, with this one-of-a-kind animal and its pretty amazing defense mechanism. You know, the cuttlefish is an absolute master of disguise. It can change its color, its texture, you name it, to blend in perfectly with its surroundings, and it does it in a flash. So this whole idea of escaping, of hiding, of just blending in, that becomes the central symbol for understanding the sepia state in people. So how does a person who's usually vibrant and full of life find themselves needing to hide or run away from it all? Well, the sources point to one core conflict, one central feeling that really kicks this whole thing off. And it all comes down to this one single word: stasis. It just means a lack of movement, you know? A feeling of being completely and totally stuck. It's the same routine, day in, day out. Whether it's at home or in a job they feel trapped in, this stagnation is the breeding ground for the sepia state. And this slide, wow, it just lays out the transformation so clearly. On the left, you have the person's natural state. They're ambitious, energetic, maybe they absolutely love to dance, and they're super responsible. But then, you see what happens when stasis takes over. They become totally indifferent, exhausted, burdened by the exact same duties they used to handle with ease, and just emotionally, well, blah. This quote really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? It's about a person who had big dreams. You know, maybe they wanted to be an artist or really climb the ladder in their career. But they feel like all those ambitions have been crushed because they're just bogged down by the repetitive demands of life. That feeling of being tied down, that is classic sepia. So this feeling of being worn down by endless, thankless chores leads us to this famous, kind of old-school description of sepia. It was known as the washerwoman's remedy. Now, look, the term itself is obviously outdated, but the feeling it describes, that's timeless. It's about someone who is just completely worn out by an unending, monotonous cycle of work. Okay, so what happens when this internal feeling of being stuck, this stasis, starts to bubble to the surface? Well, it begins to show up as some very clear emotional and physical symptoms. And it's really like a cascade, with one thing leading right to the next. The emotional decline usually follows this very distinct pattern. It starts with indifference, just a total loss of interest in their family, their hobbies. Then, as the years go by, that indifference can curdle into irritability. They get offended by the smallest things and they do not want you to try and console them. And finally, it can progress all the way to real anger and yelling. This quote, man, it's so powerful because it perfectly captures the tragedy of sepia's indifference. The person will actually say to you, I know I love my family, but the feelings are just frozen. It's not that the love is gone, it's that they have a complete inability to express it. It's like the emotions themselves are stuck in stasis. And then, of course, the body starts to echo this internal state. A person needing sepia often develops a really specific set of physical symptoms. There's often this bearing down feeling in the pelvis, like everything's about to fall out. You might see a butterfly-shaped brown pigmentation across the nose and cheeks. That's called cloasma. They feel this deep internal chill, and a lot of times symptoms are worse on the left side. Oh, and you also get these distinct cravings for sour things like vinegar and for chocolate. So if the absolute core of the problem is this lack of movement, this profound sense of being stuck, what on earth brings relief? What's the antidote to stasis? And the answer is actually really beautiful and simple. The very thing that was lost, dynamic movement, is precisely what brings relief. The cure is the polar opposite of the cause. And this is where it gets really interesting. The sources are crystal clear that things that break up the monotony provide huge relief. Vigorous exercise, like jogging, feels way better than just a gentle walk. Dancing, which was maybe a passion they lost along the way, feels amazing. Being busy at a job helps, and so does the warmth and pressure of being in bed. And get this, even a good thunderstorm can stir them out of their funk. Which brings us right to our final and most essential takeaway from this whole explainer. If you're going to remember one thing about resolving this state, what is it? And this final image says it all. If stagnation is the disease, movement is the cure. And that can be physical movement like exercise, professional movement like going after a career, or emotional movement out of that frozen state. Breaking the stasis is what restores balance. It's all about getting life flowing again.